So I am so thankful for all of you who are continuing the conversation with us today as part of Texas Interfaith Advocacy Days. We have had so many new people who've been able to participate in this program because of the fact that it's online. So many new people finding Texas Impact programming, and so really appreciate all of you for tuning in and for inviting your friends to be a part of this journey. But we thought it was important, because we have so many new people, to spend one session each afternoon talking about Texas Impact, who we are and what we do. And so joining us every day at 4 o'clock during this conference, we're going to have a couple of Texas Impact board members talking about why they choose to participate and why it's important. And for the first one of these sessions, we are thankful to have with us Cynthia Reeves. Hey, Cynthia. We have with us Ellen Sable. Ellen, hey. And finally, Reverend Paul Klitsky. Paul, thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate the time, and we're going to keep this conversational. And if folks have questions they'd like to add to the conversation, please feel free to post those in the Q&A and chat. But I'm going to start out with hopefully a simple question, and Bee's gone, so she won't be able to judge you for your answer. But for folks who don't know about Texas Impact, how would you describe the organization in your own words? And maybe as part of that, since I didn't give you all like a very long introduction, maybe talk about who you are and how you come to this work. And I'm going to go in order that I see you on my screen. So we'll start with Cynthia.
Well, I come to this work through United Methodist Women. Right now, I'm serving as the National Vice President of United Methodist Women and part of the North Texas Conference. Texas Impact to me is my faith-centered go-to place when I need information, direction, community, courage, when I'm dealing with justice-seeking issues that here in the state of Texas. It's a place where there's no question that is too weird, and the number of times you ask the same question is not counted.
Not that anybody would ask the same question more than once, right, Cynthia? So Ellen, same question.
So I am with the National Council of Jewish Women, which is a national organization, but we have sections, we call them sections, but chapters in Texas. And I serve on the board of Texas Impact as a representative of the National Council of Jewish Women. They are an advocacy and community service organization. And focusing on local communities, specifically, the different sections would focus on programs in local communities. I'm also a member of Congregation Beth Israel here in Austin, so that's where I'm at. Texas Impact to me is like a platform or a meeting space or an assembly place for people of faith. And both clergy and lay people. I'm a lay person at my congregation, but for people who are inspired to bring their faith forward in addressing public policy concerns in Texas. So it's like acts, kind of as Cynthia said, it's like a conduit to amplify voices of the citizens of Texas to be heard.
Thank you, Ellen. Paul, same question.
Well, if we all just read the mission statement, it would probably wouldn't be very unique, right? That's the, but so I'm Paul. I'm an Episcopal priest. I have been for a while now, but I've been in Dallas almost 6 years, serving as rector of Church of the Ascension here in Dallas. And I think, for me, Texas Impact, I knew of it even before I arrived here because I had worked on issues around climate change while in a different state and had the opportunity to collaborate a bit with Bee and some of the other folks that were working for her a little while back. And so for me, Texas Impact is this fantastic collaboration point. Interfaith, which is important to me because I think it strengthens our voice or magnifies our voice. And I think it's a collaboration point as the people of faith seek justice. And I think for many, because a number of the people of the parish that I serve have joined, I think for many, it helps us make our faith, take our faith out into the world, which I think so many are seeking to do, right? Our time of prayer, our time of fellowship, so important for people of faith, but how do we live our faith? And it is through the work of Texas Impact, an opportunity to engage more meaningfully through that collaboration and more targeted. So we hopefully more effectively.
Hopefully more effectively. So Texas Impact is a statewide network, and you've all talked about the groups that you represent and the traditions that you come from, and our agenda comes from our member denominations or member adjudicatories or groups, right? So you all bring your faith background as the board comes up with a consensus legislative agenda that everybody can agree to. So why is it important to have a statewide advocacy organization representing the views of your particular faith tradition? And we'll skip turns this time and start with Ellen. Why is that important?
I would say, just like in other faith traditions, there's quite a diversity of Jews across Texas, from different levels of religious observance to, backgrounds and affiliated and unaffiliated levels of engagement in their own communities. And, including people who were born as Jews and people who we call Jews by choice, who became Jewish along the way. Texas Impact allows sort of the voices of this diversity across the Jewish community in Texas to work together in concert. I mean, we don't often have that opportunity as a community, and not everyone sees eye to eye on all the issues. But where we can find common ground, for sure, not only among the Jewish community, but among the faith groups represented, it's like a perfect fit.
All right, Paul.
Will you restate the question just so I was focused on the answer that I was listening to, and I may have lost. I want to make sure I'm not answering just similar thoughts.
Yeah, that's so why is it important to have a statewide advocacy organization representing the views of your faith tradition?
Oh yeah, okay. And certainly I heard that sense of diversity among people represented. Certainly we as Episcopalians have that as well. But we do, we have some denominational statements or areas that we really do feel strongly about. And this allows us to collaborate across some of the difference that we might experience, and across, so in our denomination, there are dioceses or, regional bodies, and there are several because Texas is huge. So having Texas Impact allows for collaboration among those dioceses, not just the parish level, but for us to all kind of have a unified voice. And I also think that the collaboration also stems through the work of the staff at Texas Impact, where often it's the staff that are able to identify it's this person or that person that might actually be the swing votes on a particular thing. And so even if it's not my representative, I might know an Episcopalian or a person of faith that is that, has that representative. And so I think that collaboration is key if we really care about these issues. I mean, that's that kind of magnified effectiveness.
And that collaboration and that connectionalism, right? That one good thing about many of our faith traditions is we have people all over the state. And so to be able to both collaborate with people from different faiths, but also to be able to use our connections to get to the right people. And Josh and I certainly have stories about, faith, people of one particular faith tradition reaching out to colleagues across the state when we really needed somebody to make a telephone call. That's certainly important. Cynthia, there are certainly United Methodist Women throughout Texas. Why is it important to be a part of this network?
Well, I think it's important to be a part of the network for that connection, which gives us power and continuity. I think it's important for, as United Methodists, for that mainline Protestant church to be represented. Not every church has the advocacy and justice thoughts that are United Methodist, and I want people to know that not all Christian churches think the same, and there needs to be that voice needs to be out there. And I think that Texas Impact leads us in sharing that other way of thinking, maybe.
I've heard rumors of congregations of different faith backgrounds who have taken different policy positions than the justice-minded ones we might be promoting at this event this week. So, I know the three of y'all, and just lining this up today, like I talked to y'all this week, and every one of you have many different hats that you wear and have very full schedules, right? Just in putting this together, I was reminded of that. So it does take a commitment for you all to do this work. And I wonder why, out of all of the different opportunities you have, that you have chosen to spend some of your time in this capacity as a board member. Paul, I'll start with you this time.
I think it's important to kind of diversify our service. So, I mean, part of our ministry, we do literally feed people through food pantries and things. Garden, variety of sources, right? We try to support our immediate community, but I know that, while it's important for me to help a family or a dozen families or 100 families in those ways, that when we do this kind of work, it can help thousands or millions. And part of the reason it's easy for me to dedicate time to Texas Impact is I feel like it makes the time that I do have to do advocacy in a very busy schedule as effective as possible. And so I feel like a lot of the legwork, the collaboration among denominations and faith groups, and identifying where and when to show up, or those opportunities that we might be most effective, means that the minutes and the hours that I have we're making the most of them. So I think you and the staff at Texas Impact know that if you call or text me and say, if possible, I'll show up, because I know you don't call me, without a real opportunity for us to be, having meaningful action.
Note to self: don't call Paul unless it's important. All right, Ellen, same question.
Why do I choose to spend time with Texas Impact among all the other? I mean, I think Paul said a lot of, I think, my thoughts as well, that, it's putting faith into action. It's allowing us, I mean, we come from faith traditions, all of us, that, instruct and motivate and command us to take action. And, we all know what what our scripture says and what we're commanded to do, but this is a conduit to allow that. And it's with the amazing staff and at Texas Impact, it really does allow that to be put into action.
And I know you have a busy weekend this weekend, and so we really do appreciate the time and work you do. Cynthia, I know you're traveling. You mentioned while we were getting on, almost as soon as we're done here. So why do you choose to spend time with Texas Impact in events like these?
Because not everybody has a Texas Impact to support them. It is not a given. And if I'm not in there doing my best to make sure that Texas Impact keeps happening and is a thing, then we wouldn't have the educated, dedicated, wise, and inspiring voice for justice here in Texas. I mean, we need this across our state and around the world. And I can trust Texas Impact, and that means so much to me.
Can I add something also? I didn't mean, I think as as a Jew on this panel and, in the state of Texas, it also helps me represent the diversity of Texas, religious diversity, to our elected leaders of the state, which I think is super important. So, and I know there is quite a diversity represented in Texas Impact throughout the various faith traditions in Texas.
That is an important reminder. Thanks. So I'm going to stick with you, Ellen. One of my favorite exercises with this organization is the board retreat every other year, where about 50 faith leaders from throughout the state come together and determine what the priorities of the organization are, and try to come to consensus around what mainline faith judicatories or denominations or faith groups believe. And so I'm just interested, and I think folks might be as well, what do you think, just for you personally, is one of the most important issues for Texans of faith to be focusing on? Ellen, we'll start with you.
Okay. I think I've said this maybe before in prior, maybe Weekly Witness or something, but in Judaism, collective memory is super important. And we're reminded again and again, right? In the Torah, we were strangers, so you shall not do, or you shall welcome the stranger, right? Treat your neighbor as you love your neighbor as yourself. All of that comes out of this, the experience of being oppressed, so don't do that to others, and just do the opposite, welcome. And this relates to so much that's going on. I can't really say one specific issue, but I'm thinking about, in that context, about, immigration reform, about forming our criminal justice system, voting rights, all of these things, correcting the inequities in our policies. So, all that related to, B'Tselem Elohim, right? That we're all created in the image of God. And so, there's all kinds of overlap on these issues.
Thanks. Cynthia, most important issue for you?
I think it is very important to understand how important we all are. Each one of us is very important. I don't think most people understand that when they write those cards, when they write those letters, when they attend that rally, they are important, and it's going to make a difference. And that to prioritize that, when we work with B and the fabulous staff of Texas Impact, we're making a difference. We are a strong instrument of justice. And so write those letters, the letter to the editor, together with God's help, we can change the world for good.
Right. Paul.
Boy, that's a awful question to have to answer, right? It's like, which is your favorite child, right? Which issue is most important? We've got some competing things for sure. I think healthcare is growing to become kind of chief among them, and maybe the pandemic has left me feeling that more and more. I think the growing cost as a nation and per person or household, I think it's outrageous that we have grown tolerant of the system that's in place, and I think that it's not just. If there's another that falls on its heels, it's just the discrimination that happens across the board. I think it might be most obvious in healthcare, which is why I kind of felt like I had to name that as if there was one thing. But the legislative agenda of Texas Impact is my priority.
Hey, look at you.
E for the win.
He sees that B turned her video back on, so now he's going to start trying to get some extra points. So you've been on the board for a period of time, all of you, but there was a time when you were not, right? And so I wonder if there was something you wish you would have known before you joined the Texas Impact Board that folks should know now. Sorry, anybody have that one? I forgot I was calling on y'all. So Paul, you're still on my screen. What do you think?
I'm in a kind of a peculiar seat to answer that because as soon as I got here, I think I was on the board almost immediately. B saw me coming and quickly recruited me. I think the thing that might be helpful for a non-board member to know about Texas Impact is the thing that you kind of pointed to, Scott, is the thoughtfulness and the process by which that legislative agenda is set, that there are many voices representing many more voices in the room as that is determined, because that is the foundation of that collaborative work that is Texas Impact. So if there's one thing I want a non-board member to be assured of, is just to know that.
All right, Cynthia, what do you wish folks would know?
That Texas Impact is there to help, that they can ask questions, get support for their congregations. The Texas Impact is there to be utilized, and there's a lot of work to be done. So ask them.
There is a lot of work to be done. Ellen.
So I'm going to use a metaphor here. So my husband really cooks great soup. Like he just kind of knows how to put together a pot of, with the broth and the vegetables. And, so when my kids were really little, we were having soup, and one of them said, Dad is a really good, and then she stopped to think about how to phrase this, and she said, super cookie. She said, and we were laughing. Dad is a really super cookie. I feel like B is a really super cookie, a really good super cookie, and a really good soup cooker too. But taking the diversity of people that we've been talking about and where, faith traditions in Texas, and then putting it in a pot with some really good broth and making something delicious out of Texas Impact. And her staff, y'all included that are here, is like the special garnish that adds, the special something to it. So I know maybe that doesn't exactly answer your question about what I didn't know when I first came, but, just really impressed with the staff and what you guys have created over the years.
Number one, thank you. Number two, I feel like B's now going to be referred to as Super Cookie at the next staff meeting.
Just careful.
And number three, I don't want to pull the curtain back too far, but just so y'all know, back when we used to meet in person for events like this, the staff used to go out to lunch afterwards after the final day. And I feel like instead of going to a Mexican food restaurant, we're now going to be coming to have some soup. Ellen's house. So as the engagement director, I'm going to bring B in just a second, but the next question I have for our board members that I feel like is important for me to ask is, what do you hope folks will do when they finish this event? Right? Like, and I talked during my session, we're not just doing this for you to consume information and be like smarter public policy people so you can argue with your friends on Facebook or something. Like, the goal is to actually engage in public policy. So we'll start again with Cynthia. What do you hope folks will do post-event?
Do what B tells you to do. I mean, to make the calls, to write the letters, You know, we've got to do it. Not just be consumers of the good news and what we're supposed to do, but actually go out and do it. So.
All right, Ellen, your homework assignment for the listeners.
You know, stay engaged, and maybe, you know, yeah, social media is great, but like to kind of break through all this, you know, the stuff that makes you mad in terms of like, you know, all the negative stuff, but just to what's important and how do we bring it forward, and how do we create those relationships like with our legislators, and to continue to do that going forward. Yeah.
All right, and homework from Paul.
I think I would like everybody to share the experience that they've had here with a few people. Ideally, I think that would be targeted. So someone who's frustrated or upset or wants to be engaged but doesn't know how. This is a perfect opportunity. And it might arrive to you through social media or over the phone or coffee, but certainly all of us encounter friends and family who are frustrated about something political and don't really know how to do anything about it, and encouraging them, saying, you know, your representatives need to hear that. They can't represent you unless they hear that. That is how they can represent you. And then in addition to that, if you were so inclined, I would say, develop a relationship with your representative, right? I mean, because then it's even easier to describe to people the significance and importance it has. If you've done it, it's really easy to say, you know, I called mine about this or that, and they actually were interested. Or they followed up, they called me back, you know. But that is the only, I think that's that's my homework.
All right. So I'm going to bring B into the conversation. So you have been in this position we've established during an earlier session for like 21 years now. I'm curious how you have seen Texas Impact evolve over the course of that time, and what you wish people who are new to the process would know.
Thanks for that question. So yeah, I have been here for just about exactly 21 years. When I started, my youngest kid was a baby, and now she's getting married. So that's that's right. And when I started working for Texas Impact, I had never heard of it until I started working for it. I had no idea that it existed. I'm a lifelong churchgoer. I belonged to the Presbyterian Church and thought I kind of knew, you know, what was up. And when I heard of the organization was when they asked me to apply for the job. I think it's still the case that we never get the word out as much as we would like to. We've never told everybody as much as we wish we had. We've brought, we have a new staff member, Crystal Leedy, who is hopefully going to be able to extend our communications out to congregations more, and hopefully that'll help. But the big difference when I started, so I started the job, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what Texas Impact was, and I had come working from state government. And I didn't really know what would be a meaningful number of participants in a thing like Texas Impact. But when I started the job, there were 3,000 people in the database. And today, I think there's more like 23,000 individuals plus congregations and other groups. And it for sure, we have members in every single legislative district. And I think the big difference is that when I started working here and before that, so I started in 2000, and in the 90s and the 80s and in the 70s when Texas Impact first started, you know, if you think, I'm thinking about what these three board members have talked about diversity and the collaborative nature of the legislative agenda and all of that stuff. I think prior to the 2000s, and maybe a little bit prior to the beginning of the internet, there was a hierarchical way that the church worked, or that the faith communities worked, even in their public policy advocacy. And there was, I think when lobbyists would go from religious groups to the Capitol in Austin or in Washington or wherever, they would go saying, I represent the position of the faith community. And one of the first times that I did legislative testimony as the director of Texas Impact, I testified on a bill, and one of the legislators said, well, I'm Methodist and I don't agree with you. As though that was sort of the end of the story. And it was, I think what we've been able to evolve, and I mean, including we've been able to evolve legislators' understanding of it. I believe that we've been able to evolve the way the board thinks about itself and its interactions, and the way that our members think about what we do. Is we don't purport to take the definitive position that everybody in the faith community agrees with. What we say is we're coming with kind of the weight of a lot of different voices that all come together at points of intersection. And it doesn't mean that every single person in every single faith tradition that belongs to Texas Impact always agrees on everything. I had a lady email me yesterday in response to an action alert that we sent, and she said, well, I disagree with this, but I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. We all know that in the faith community, we do agree to disagree about a lot of stuff. But I think the way that Texas Impact has been able to grow and thrive is by making more and more clear that this is not about some small crystallization of just a couple of people who are going to speak for the whole group. It's about more and more making it be that more and more people can speak in the process. And ultimately, that's what our whole democratic process is built around, is the idea that all of us have a voice in the process, and the relationships that we build in our communities with our legislators and our city council people, and also with our next door neighbors. Each one of those relationships contributes data to the process. That's what I'd say.
And speaking about this event in particular, I mean, certainly there's a Interfaith Advocacy Days that happens in DC, and this is relatively new. Well, it's new in Texas, right? So what do you hope to see out of this event? And I'll open this up to everybody. What do you hope to see out of this event in future years?
Well, I'll start. I hope to see it in person. We miss you guys. We miss everybody so much in person. But I think what I hope is that people over time understand that they can, you can learn about a lot of issues without having to become completely consumed by all of them. You can learn about all the issues and hear all the information and decide, well, I'm, in my position where I am now, the one that it makes the most sense for me to work on is healthcare or immigration or climate or whatever the thing is. And also hold intention that, so I'm going to work on this one thing, but that doesn't mean that I don't know that those other things are also important to my faith community. That's what I think is important. The whole and the parts.
Board members have thoughts?
I think that it's important for all the different voices to be heard, for so that we can become comfortable with having the different voices and hearing the different opinions, and go from there with what work that we have to do. But too often we are siloed and we don't know each other, and we have a tendency to be afraid of what we don't know. And I don't think that is of God. And so I hope that will happen.
And I'd like to just say that my hope is that there, like the work over the arc of the 20 years just kind of it continues that Texas Impact will continue to gain respect, which I believe is deserving, the ability to focus on issues and the effects and solutions and policy, and not on politics. Yeah.
I think one of the things that we've been missing throughout the pandemic time is the small conversations that happen alongside of everything. The small conversations alongside of an event like this, church on Sunday, in and out of, even grocery shopping. We're in a rush. We don't want to linger, and so I look forward to the return to that, and I hope that we can endeavor to replace some of that through. We've been encouraging everybody in our parish is just, if you think you're over communicating, you're not. The extra phone call to share something, a text message, whatever thing you like, or someone else likes, the means of communication, use it. Call more, FaceTime more, Zoom more. Zoom fatigue is real, but if it's the interpersonal connection, it doesn't always exhaust us in the same way that meetings do. So now, not all Zooms are created equal, but I think in the future, it would be we'll see the resumption of that more or less automatically. But what a treasure it might be if we had stories of points of connection to bring back.
It made me laugh while you were talking, because I've now 5-year-old, but at the beginning of this pandemic, he was 4. And we spent, 9 months, at home with me and his sister doing school at home and everything. And we were worried that we were always worried that not worried, but we thought he was going to be an introvert. But as soon as we started going back out, he now speaks to every human he sees and wants to have a conversation with the DoorDash person and the mail person, and he just won't stop talking. And I do think this is going to hopefully make us be more intentional about communicating, reaching out to folks. We are getting close on time, and want to give people a chance to take a break before the next session, which I'm really excited about. But I wonder if you all have closing thoughts for this time together. Anything else you'd like to make sure people know about Texas Impact, or anything you'd like to leave folks with? And I'll just open it up to the group.
Well, this might be too early to say, but every one of you can be a member of Texas Impact, and you should.
Somebody will inevitably post this in the chat momentarily, but certainly we would love for you to become a member. I think it's texasimpact.org/join, but watch that link in the chat. Anything else y'all would like to leave us with?
I think just,
go ahead.
Go on, Paul.
You.
That I think you alluded to this too when you were talking about, you weren't aware of the organization when you were asked to join. I'm not aware of any other forum like this, or like I said, sort of this platform for all of us to be together that exists in the state. So it's taken the opportunity to be a part of this.
I was just gonna, Scott, your further reflection on your outgoing now 5-year-old. One of the things that I've heard has been missing, and it was a real observation to me, is strangers. And just, while as much as we should be doing this with friends and family and those we know, that we shouldn't necessarily be afraid to raise it with a stranger too, right? Because and as we do that, I think probably the most critical thing, and maybe you're not a complete stranger, but those who are still getting to know, is just to stay curious. I think, that's the key to developing great relationships, whether you're calling your representatives or others who might take an interest in this work is ask them. I mean, so they may have expertise, they may have experiences that we can learn from. So stay curious and do your homework. You had a great homework question earlier, so do your homework.
Do your homework. We don't want to lose that in the middle of this conversation. Well, I certainly appreciate Paul, Cynthia, Ellen, the three of you taking time on Saturday afternoon, the work that y'all do throughout the year to support both Texas Impact and all of the other groups that you're a part of. Having a board, our board really does inspire me, right? Like y'all are doing such great work in your daily lives, and then coming together to put it all together under the umbrella of Texas Impact and finding consensus issues that we can work on is really great.